Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of our F122 My Team Career Mode. I hope you're all having a great day and hope you're ready to settle in here for a bit of a lengthier episode here of this career mode with a wild episode on the way here today as we head into the first sprint race weekend here of Season 2 at Imola. My first race recorded on the brand new patch, what was it, 1.08 or something like that, but they have claimed to fix the AI straight line speed and I can confirm that it is better, so much better. I finally was able to turn the AI back up to what I used to run. I was running 102 here in Imola, and I felt like it was pretty solid. I might have been able to go to 103, 104, but I felt like 102 was a nice sweet spot for this episode. We've had an interesting first three races so far with Charles Leclerc, George Russell as well getting some wins here as with Max Verstappen in between those two drivers. So we've had three different drivers, three different teams win in the opening three rounds of the season. I don't see a fourth different team winning here this episode in Imola, but maybe a fourth different driver. That would certainly be nice here. Now, so far, a bit of a different kind of vibe than we had in Season 1 here. Now, as we get underway here in practice here in Imola, it's going to be an interesting race weekend. It's supposed to rain in the sprint race. Qualifying is supposed to have some rain as well. So, there's going to be a dry race, though. So, it's going to be an interesting one to see how this all works out with timing and whatnot, especially in qualifying. If the rain comes a little bit later in the session, it'll be interesting to see if we can time it right. Maybe get ourselves into like a Q2 kind of deal if we're really lucky. But practice, it was overall pretty good. I was pretty confident and comfortable with the car. This track is a lot of fun to drive. You know, there's not a lot of room for error in Imola though, so if you make a mistake, you pay the price immediately, and yeah, you know, you're off in the gravel, you're off in the grass. Either way, there's not a lot of runoff to use here, other than the only part I can really think about that is kind of generous on the runoff is that chicane. So we come through though into qualifying. You can see it is overcast, cloudy conditions, but no rain falling currently on the circuit. But like I said, it was key to note that rain was on the way, and it was looking like it was going to hit here towards the last half of Q1. But my first lap of Q1, well, you know, I talked about not much room for error. There was one of those right there. So I stayed out on the same set of tires and turned the ERS down and then cranked it back up for my second lap here, getting pretty aggressive through that chicane. But we come through to set a baseline lap finally here, and it's going to put us currently in P6, but it's behind our teammate Porcher. And you see me looking here in the little panels of being able to view the other drivers to see what the weather's looking like. Is it raining? Is it not? So I come through and late in the session and set a lap a little bit earlier than I wanted to because I felt like the rain was coming. So here we are trying to find a way to gain some time, and so far I actually hadn't gained any time, which was a little bit concerning. But right through here, this section, which is one of the most unique sections on the F1 calendar, this is where the time starts to pick up for myself here. Through the chicane, I was very aggressive on the track limit, surprisingly, with strict corner cutting. They didn't call me for it, and we are about 3/10 better. Right at the end of the lap, the rain starts falling. This might be a perfect storm, literally, for us here. Now, as we exit the final turn, nearly half a second better, but the track's gonna get wet. We come through the cross the line, we go P11, way better. We wouldn't end up P11, we would drop down the order, but it was P14, so the rain falling dampened the track enough to allow me to slip through into Q2. You can see as well, I mean, we only made it by a couple of tenths, not even like a tenth and a half, so it was very borderline. We come through into Q2, and the rain was still in that whole transitional period where the dry tires and the intermediate tires, they were starting to get a little bit closer, but everybody was out trying to set a lap, because the way I was looking at it was the first 10 drivers probably to set a lap here are going to be the ones that move on. You can see a big movement right there of oversteer for my car, but I was one of those first 10 that was coming through to complete a lap, so this might get us through into Q3 in a shock turn of events here with the weather. We come through the cross line, we actually beat Alex Albon and Yuki Tsunoda, and sure enough, the track continued to get wet, so we would end up sneaking our way through into Q3 after barely scraping our way through into Q2. I mean, the absolute unthinkable. Sebastian Vettel qualifies down in 16th place, an absolutely horrendous effort there from the German driver. Now as we come through into Q3, and here we were on our second lap in Q3, by the way, because it was really raining a little bit earlier in the session, and I had made a terrible attempt at a lap, so this is my second lap, and the rain was lightening up, so it was actually starting to get a little bit drier, and the times were starting to pick up a little bit here right at the end of the session, and I was actually pretty close with George Russell's time through the first couple couple of sectors, which was making me pretty confident here. Now as we come through the chicane, very aggressive again on the track limits, and it was looking like a top 5 might be a possibility here in Q3, which is the unthinkable for this Trackhouse Racing team as we come through the final turn. Where is it going to be here? Now we don't really have much to judge it off of based off our first lap. We're going to come through to cross the line, and we are going to do the unthinkable. We have just put this Trackhouse Racing car on pole position here for the Imola sprint race. What in the world just happened? Less than a tenth between myself and Lewis Hamilton. I immediately am going into the race director to see what in the world, how did this just happen? Base it off the times they ran, but they don't let you actually look at that anymore. So we just done the unthinkable here in Imola, and we are starting on pole for the sprint race. Let's set it over to Crofty.
Make for a difficult sprint for all the teams. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Golden Boy lines up on pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Sergio Perez, and Bottas, Russell, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, and Carlos Sainz, Albon, Gasly, Mick Schumacher, and Stroll, Ocon, Vettel, Kevin Magnussen, and Oscar Piastri, Teo Pourchaire, Joe, Latifi, and Lando Norris starts from the back of the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Ready to go, lights out here from the sprint race. Our first pole in our Formula 1 career, and in very unexpected fashion with weather. And here we are at the front of the grid for just, 11 laps here in Imola. So, and with it being pouring rain, it is wet tire conditions. We could very well get a top 5 out of this. I don't expect to hang into the top 3. I don't expect to lead the first lap, to be completely honest. So we'll see what happens here now as everybody grids up. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, 3 world champions behind me. There is, 9 world championships right behind me, with 7 with Hamilton, 1 for Leclerc from last season, and then of course Max Verstappen with 1 from the 2021 season. So a little bit nervous to say the least here now as we are ready to go. Lights out, and it's all about getting a good start here now as we are ready to go, and it's going to be 5 red lights, and it'll be as well lights out, and we are underway in the sprint race here for 11 laps in Imola, and it's actually a great start from myself. We get off the line tremendously better than Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton actually follows in behind Verstappen as we head down into turn 1, and it didn't take long for these guys to actually get right up my gearbox and actually make a big mistake right there in turn 1, running over those little yellow sausage curbs there. Now as you can see in the background, it's an absolute mess. Our teammate of Teo Pourchaire engulfed in just clownery there in turn 1 and 2. Like I said, I wasn't even expecting to lead this first and opening lap here. Now as you can see, Leclerc battling actually with Sergio Perez there in the Alpine. A great qualifying effort from Perez, and so far a good start from him. As you can see, Verstappen was already all over my gearbox there, but he had a bit of oversteer on the exit of the hairpin. So now he's under attack from Hamilton, who's under attack from Leclerc there, as he's going to try and go the inside of the British 7-time world champion there, and they're going to go wheel to wheel here now, and actually Leclerc will take the 3rd position here from Lewis Hamilton now as Max Verstappen is all over the back of myself here, and you can see myself struggling right there on grip, and I completely lose grip right there. Verstappen is going to take the lead going down into the chicane. I backed out of it because there's no point in going wheel to wheel into a chicane with Max Verstappen. I would honestly be fearful for my race if I did that. So there you see as well some battles there happening with George Russell as well as Daniel Ricciardo in the Alfa Romeo as we continue to just try to hold our own behind Max Verstappen. Verstappen's so hard to keep up with here in these pouring rain conditions. Verstappen, in my opinion, the best driver in Formula 1 when it comes to wet rain conditions on circuit. Now as you can see, another bunch of grip loss, and that allowed Leclerc to get through, and then here comes Lewis Hamilton with a ton of momentum. He's going to go to my left hand side as well, so another position loss. So you know, we actually fall down a little bit further than I was hoping on this first and opening lap, but down to P4 here just in front of Sergio Perez, and it wasn't long until Perez was attacking me as well here, continuing to struggle here. I had no grip. I mean, obviously it's raining, so the grip's going to be low, but I had a lot lower grip than I had in qualifying here, so I was a little bit baffled by that, messing around with the differential and seeing if I could kind of click on something here, but I would lose connection with the top 4 drivers here really quick and just try and hold my own in 5th place. Ricardo, Russell, Bottas, all just behind me, ready to scrap it out, and you can see Ricardo was right up my gearbox here, so I was a little bit concerned by that, but one thing that would help me was a Valtteri Bottas, who was actually going wheel to wheel with Ricardo, and they would give up so much time fighting wheel to wheel that I had about 2 seconds to spare all of a sudden over Ricardo, and this all happened in about the span of 1 lap, so I was able to now build up a comfortable gap. Bottas, unfortunately for me though, would get past Daniel Ricciardo eventually, so still about 2 seconds of a gap between himself and I, but he was going to be able to quickly close that gap because he had now been able to get comfortably ahead and away from Ricciardo in that much faster Ferrari here. Now, actually, yellow flags, it looks like, behind us here as we came through to start lap 8, and you can see Bottas had already run me down while Ricciardo's still a second and a half behind. Kevin Magnussen is the one that brings up the yellows in the Aston Martin. He's had a mechanical failure, so he's off the circuit, but the safety car would get deployed for Kevin Magnussen, who pulls over to the side of the track. And for the first time since the Spanish GP of last season, we got the safety car delta time glitch. So you can see the message at the top just going absolutely insane. Now, fortunately for me, I got unbelievably lucky, and the top 4 drivers were all caught up to the safety car. There was no one in between me and the top 4, so I was allowed to run them down and actually rejoin the top 4 drivers for the restart while everybody behind me couldn't. Bottas on back, they followed that weird delta time. So for the second time in this race, I've been kind of saved here with 5th position, and I should be able to hold on because there was only 2 laps left, and Leclerc goes for a daring pass around the outside, and it doesn't work. There's contact with Verstappen. Hamilton takes a 3 wide. Leclerc got damaged from that contact with Max Verstappen right there, and Verstappen holds the position over Lewis Hamilton. What a move it was from Leclerc. If it would have worked, that would have been one of the moves of the year guaranteed, but it's ended up going to be one of the chokes of the season potentially for Charles Leclerc because, like I said, he had picked up some wing damage, and that wasn't the only thing to happen. Zhou Guanyu on the restart actually goes for a spin as well, and unfortunately our teammate of Tail Porcher ran directly into the back of Zhou right there. I mean, not much he could do. Stopping a car in these wet weather conditions is going to be very difficult here, so a bit of a wild restart on both ends of the spectrum with the grid towards the front and towards the back. Leclerc came into the pit lane on the final lap of the GP. I don't know why he would have just toughed out the damage because there's only 1 lap to go, but he decides to come into the pits. Zhou Guanyu actually retires on the final lap due to a mechanical failure, and it's going to be Max Verstappen who would come through to win here in the sprint race in Imola. 2nd for Hamilton, 3rd for Perez, myself in 4th place. Our first points of the season and our first ever points run in a sprint race, and we got very lucky multiple times, of course, like I said there, to be able to get the 4th position here. So I was very satisfied with how that had worked itself out, and that sets us up very well, obviously starting P4 on the grid for the actual Grand Prix here in a few moments time. Our teammate at Tail Porcher, a rough one down there in P20. Now it's going to be sunny, it's going to be dry for the GP. That's not good for us, unfortunately. We're going to be dropping down the order. You see the points update, but nonetheless, let's head to the grid here for the Imola Grand Prix.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters wearing red today, and they've all turned out for what we're expecting will be a sensational event here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track at Imola featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One tracks as it's taken anti-clockwise. Let's hope nobody forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight on the circuit and its only DRS zone. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Golden Boy, Valtteri Bottas and Ricciardo, Russell, Sainz, Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly, Mick Schumacher, Vettel, Esteban Ocon and Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Latifi, Alex Albon and Charles Leclerc, Théo Pourchaire, Norris. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, Magnussen and Guan Yu Zhou. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
So then, ready to go lights out here in Imola now, as it's a medium to hard compound tire strategy, taking a tiny bit of fuel out of the car, but not too much, because you guys know we lose a lot of fuel in this car, and we still actually haven't got the fuel upgrade that I would like in as well. So far, if everything goes to plan, we've got a nice upgrade package coming in the next episode, which could be very beneficial. That could actually get us a little bit more comfortably ahead of Williams. Instead of going head-to-head with Williams, we might actually have a comfortable gap to Williams in the next episode, which would be like the first time since this career mode started that we've had a comfortable gap. But nonetheless, it's going to be 5 red lights, and Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, your front row. It's lights out, and we are underway here in the first of 2 Italian Grand Prix on the season. It's a head-to-head start there, but I think Hamilton has the upper edge. Perez in third just behind. It's a decent launch for myself, but not a great one. And you see Verstappen wheel-to-wheel with Hamilton. He gets out in front of Lewis there, and I was actually able to hold on to 4th place as Bottas and Ricciardo went wheel-to-wheel down into turn 1, kind of mess each other up, so that would allow me to comfortably hold on to that 4th position. That was my goal here on the start, just hold on to 4th. I really didn't care about gaining positions because I knew that I couldn't really put the fight to a Lewis Hamilton, a Perez, or a Max Verstappen to begin with. They would just blow my doors off anyways. Now, as you see Leclerc, what a day it's going to be for him trying to rebound from the damage he picked up at the end of that sprint race. A lot of work for him here to do here in this Grand Prix. Now, as you can see, all the battles happening around the circuit. Now, everyone kind of settling in, though. There you see our teammate Reese briefly tailport chair, sending one just about up the inside of Nicholas Latifi. Not sure what he was going for there, but fortunately it didn't result in any damage. I think one of the Aston Martins had picked up a little bit of damage, and I'm pretty sure it was Magnussen on the opening lap, but other than that, it was a pretty clean start here. There you see Valtteri Bottas actually right there on my gearbox. Daniel Ricciardo was able to get past me on this opening lap, so I had dropped down from 4th into 5th here on lap 1, and Bottas in their Ferrari. This could be his chance here if he plays his cards right. You know, he doesn't have a Seaman to Leclerc to worry about. He's going to go around my outside here. He could maybe get that first win for Ferrari today. We know Ferrari has the best car on the grid still, but they have certainly had their moments this season, as Tsunoda is going to go blow past me here into turn 1, and Yuki Tsunoda in Porsche AlphaTauri has really been stepping it up here this season. They've certainly had some speed here, and you can see actually myself getting passed by all these faster cars. I have no fight against George Russell, Yuki Tsunoda currently here now, and I know I could, you know, try and make life hard on these drivers and fight them, because I know some people would say it's a video game, just go and fight them, but I don't like racing in a non-realistic way when it comes to this F1 career mode here, so it's just make no sense to fight those guys. Now, as you can see, contact between Bottas and Ricciardo on lap 3 into turn 1, and it results in damage. And then there's another car, that's Schumacher, off the circuit as well. He got shoved off the circuit. Bottas picks up wing damage right there. Ricciardo locks up the left front, slides straight off into Bottas, and then just lap 5, a few moments later, there you see Lando Norris actually making the same error. Fortunately for him, he had no cars to his right side now, so things all of a sudden spicing up here, and sure enough, for the lead, here goes Max Verstappen. He did get passed by Lewis Hamilton throughout that whole mess of just things happening here in a couple of laps, so we completely missed that, but Hamilton and Verstappen are battling wheel to wheel while Bottas is coming to the pit lane to replace that front wing, so that's an extra spot for myself, and we hold on to P9 over Sebastian Vettel. But look at this battle, and look at Sergio Perez in the Alpine, who's still here fighting his former teammate of Max Verstappen, as well as Lewis Hamilton here now as Verstappen and Hamilton continue wheel to wheel as we head up the elevation change into the left-hander. Who's going to come out of this battle on top? It's going to be Hamilton as Verstappen loses grip. If you thought it was over there, you were wrong though, because Verstappen nearly into the barrier right there, finds a hole between the barrier and Lewis Hamilton's car and breezes past him on lap 6 into turn 1 as things were continuing to get a little bit crazy. Here's our team at a tailport chair actually getting run off the circuit by Mick Schumacher in turn 1, so things have gone from bad to worse this weekend for Porcher, who's had a very rough start to the season so far here for Trackhouse Racing, and I hope Justin Marks isn't regretting currently signing tail as our team entertainment because it's not been a good start to his F1 career here. As you can see, Sebastian Vettel blowing past me now. You may notice after this clip right here starting now, that the audio might sound a little bit different here now because I actually went and changed my audio settings. There's virtual safety car deployed. It's Pierre Gasly there in the Porsche AlphaTauri who's completely lost his front wing. He would actually pull off the circuit and retire from the Grand Prix, and here's what happened here. Actually, he's going to run into the side of George Russell, who had a really awkward entrance to the apex right there, and Gasly kind of committed to the apex like he would normally do it anyways, even when there was a car still there. So a bunch of damage, but it was just a virtual safety car, so just as quick as it came out, we were back racing again here. And as you can see, the continuous train of faster cars continued to run me down and pass me. There goes Ocon in the Alpine. Here comes Charles Leclerc, who's having a strong rebound so far, now actually ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. So he gets past me down into turn 1. Unfortunately, after just 9 complete laps, we've already dropped outside the top 10, and the battle for the lead continues. Here's Lewis Hamilton again to the right-hand side of Max Verstappen down into turn 1. These two, of course, had one heck of a championship fight in the 2021 season. No matter what the outcome was and how it happened, you can't deny what a great battle it was, and they would continue to go at it here in Imola now as Verstappen lost the lead, but now he's going to try and pass Hamilton around the outside like Hamilton just did a moment earlier there, and sure enough, Verstappen takes the lead again here now as these two continue to have an epic battle. Hamilton nearly runs into the back of Verstappen on lap 14, who threw a bit of a block, but Verstappen goes straight on. He locks up into turn 1 and throws what could have been a win here in Imola away, and he's going to drop all the way down to 4th place as Russell goes through as well. As I was caught up in this battle here right in front of me of Ricciardo and Leclerc, who were wheel to wheel, and I was losing time to Albon with these two battling in front of me, so I decided to actually pit a lap earlier. So throw a bit of an audible, pit about a lap early, and come in to put on the hard compound tire because I wasn't concerned. I knew we could make it to the end no matter what here if we pit a lap early. So we come in and put on that hard compound tire here and hoping for a good pit stop. Every pit stop has been good this season except for this one right here. They were slow on the left rear, so it took them an extra few seconds, and for the first time this season we have had a pit stop error. Now remember, like last season, like the last 5 races we had like 4 pit errors, so we've made a big leap forward in our pit strategy or in our pit stops this season, that is for sure. And we did purchase overall as a team an upgrade to our pit crew, and it's certainly making a difference here. Is actually Kevin Magnussen going way quicker than me here on lap 15. He blows right on by. Not too concerned though, because he would actually be pitting at the end of lap 16, but we know because of the time lost there with the messed up pit stop that we were going to lose some track position, specifically to Alex Albon. As actually I come out in front of Sebastian Vettel. Not sure what happened to Vettel, but he did lose a bunch of track position. Yellow flags again here in front of me. At this point, it's Ricciardo who's run wide in turn 1, and this had become such a normal thing at this point that I just stopped actually looking into what happened because, like I said, it was just happening like every other lap, it felt like. But Vettel here up the inside of me into the penultimate corner, lap 19. Now things kind of calming down a little bit. Hamilton has a comfortable lead now over Sergio Perez and George Russell, then Max Verstappen. Yellow flags again into turn 1. This time it was our former teammate of Oscar Piastri who left Trackhouse Racing because he wasn't happy with where the team stacked up on the grid here. Now Nicholas Latifi out of the session on lap 20 due to a mechanical failure, but this time it's going to bring out a safety car. So you see me having a bit of a moment of, do I come in for soft tires or not? I stayed out, but this safety car finally comes out here for the first time this season in an actual Grand Prix, and now this would set us up for a restart with about 9 laps to go here. And actually we get told very last second that we're going back racing. The safety car was already headed towards the pit lane before we even knew that it was coming in, so we get back racing here on lap now 24 this is here, so less than 10 laps to go, right behind Sebastian Vettel in that Porsche Red Bull. And Porsche is kind of having a good showing other than our team in the tailport chair here today. Now is Stroll. He's going to go to my right hand side, and I'm saying, you know what, you can have that, Lance. I'm just going to gladly let you go over there and then slow yourself down, which is exactly what happened. Vettel with a daring pass right there on the Williams of Alex Albon here now, as we actually had some drama on this restart. That was George Russell completely overshooting the chicane and destroying his front wing off of the side pod of Max Verstappen. He would pull over, he would be out of the Grand Prix, so this would move us back into the points. We were up into P10 here with now less than 9 laps to go in this Grand Prix. It has been a wild weekend from qualifying to the sprint race to the actual Grand Prix in itself, and it comes down to these closing 5 laps where unfortunately I noticed behind me that Valtteri Bottas is coming up to me very quick, and I was realizing the points finish was likely not going to happen. Yellow flag briefly behind us, but it got sorted out, and there is Bottas. I have nothing for him, so he's going to steal the last point from myself here. unfortunately, it might not just be meant to be. Lewis Hamilton closing in on his first win of the season as we come through to start the final lap here in Imola. What a drive from Hamilton, and what a drive as well from Sergio Perez in the Alpine, who's looking to get Alpine their first podium since this My Team career mode started here when F122, of course, released. I mean, Perez on another level this whole weekend with the qualifying, with the sprint race, and it would be Lewis Hamilton out of the final corner to come through to get his first win of the season. He's trying to bring himself back into this championship battle after a rough start to these first 3 races. Perez second, Verstappen third, Yuki Tsunoda there is going to finish in 4th place. What a drive from Tsunoda as we have an accident on the cool down lap. Perez has crashed into the back of Lewis Hamilton here, and thankfully Perez appears to be celebrating. I don't know if he's celebrating second or the fact that he just drove into the back of Lewis Hamilton. What in the world was that right there from Checo Perez there as he drove, like I said, straight to the back of the British driver and winner of Lewis Hamilton here. Let's head to the podium for the celebrations here after we finish in P11.
And talk to me. What do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection. A shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
Maybe one of the overall craziest episodes here, because we had something happening, that was just unexpected, wild uncharacteristics in qualifying and the sprint race and the Grand Prix itself. It was, like we said, I mean, a few times already, just an overall crazy episode, but I enjoyed every single second of it, to be completely honest with you guys. So overall for the weekend, we get 9th place points. But obviously we were P11 in the actual Grand Prix itself. So we got 5 points there in the sprint race, which actually equals the most points we've had in the season, because we had 5 points in season 1 as well there. So Trackhouse gets their first points of the season, and so does Williams. So the only team left this season without points is Aston Martin. We might have every single team get a point this season, which would be really cool to see here. Now, as post-race, trying to get in a bunch of upgrades here. We had some resource points to burn through, so this is an opportunity for us to really make a nice little bit of a leap forward here, like I said at the earlier part of the episode here. And if all these parts, of course, or all these upgrades are successful, they will be happening before the next Grand Prix in Miami for the first of 2 United States Grand Prix and first of 2 home races for Trackhouse Racing, with Justin Marks owning that team. But that does it for me. If you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. What a wild episode it was here this time out in Imola. In the next one, we head to Miami, and we'll see what we can do there. What is going to be a very heavy straight line speed track. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.